What's happening, everyone? It's your boy Count Jinsolo. Welcome to another Pokemon Go video. Today I wanted to talk about exclusive moves, why I've been frustrated with them, and what I think Niantic could do to improve exclusive moves and not make them so kind of frustrating for a lot of different players, especially those of us who are trying to be a little bit more competitive. And really, honestly, I think exclusive moves could be a really bad thing for PvP moving forward. If PvP were to come out and exclusive moves do play a huge role in that, I think it could definitely skew the competitive landscape and kind of ruin PvP for a lot of players. So I'm going to be talking about all of that. But yeah, so exclusive moves. The reason why I'm talking about this now is for two things. Of course, right now we have this Halloween event that's going on, and it's extremely exciting because there's definitely a lot of shinies. I actually think this might be the one event that has the most potential shinies out of every event we've ever had. So it's definitely a really exciting event. Of course, a lot of new Pokemon are starting to show up, like we got Gen 4. But we also have some Gen 4 ghosts, and I'm assuming that some of the Gen 4 ghosts that are still not here yet are going to make an appearance at the tail end of this event, kind of like what they did with, I think it was November of last year. But in any case, yeah, so the Gen 4 event is pretty good. The Halloween event is pretty good. We also have a new legendary, which has taken up a lot of people's time. But something that happened recently that has gone under the radar for a lot of players, but it was definitely something that was pretty big, is that, well, for about 20 minutes, we were able to TM pretty much any Mewtwo we had to get Shadow Ball. And of course, for Niantic, this was a huge mistake. This was actually not intended, and they were able to fix it completely. But a lot of players were able to get a lot of really high IV Mewtwo's that they were able to catch outside of EX raids and get them Shadow Ball. Now, why is this a huge deal? Well, it's a big deal because Shadow Ball Mewtwo is miles ahead of any other Mewtwo that you could have. Pretty much all of the Mewtwo's that you could catch from the Mewtwo month after EX raids, well, all of those Mewtwo's were superior, or I should say inferior, to any Mewtwo with Shadow Ball. So an 89% Mewtwo with Shadow Ball with, let's say, 14 attack, that is still going to be extremely valuable over a 100% Mewtwo with Psychic or Ice Beam or Flamethrower. Now, because of this event, I actually started thinking a lot about exclusive moves. And of course, recently, we also had an announcement that we're going to be getting Gengar as a kind of a Gengar Day, kind of like what we had with Articuno Day and Moltres Day and Zapdos Day over the summer. We're going to be getting that for Gengar, which is really exciting in and of itself, because of course this will give us an access to shiny Gengar, which looks really sick. But yeah, on top of all of that, we also have a new move for Gengar, which is kind of pathetic, which is of course Psychic. And I really don't see the logic behind why we're gonna have Psychic as an exclusive move for Gengar. I mean, it would make the most sense that they would go back to his legacy move, Shadow Claw, to really beef up the hype for this whole event, but instead they decided to go with Psychic. So the pendulum can swing both ways. Of course, in the case of Mewtwo, we have Shadow Ball, which was really big for this Pokemon, but then of course we have Gengar, which has an exclusive move which is abysmal for the Pokemon. So yeah, so in essence, the exclusive move system, just, I don't see the point of having it in the game. Of course, like, for a lot of players who want to have legacy Pokemon and have a lot of excitement towards legacy moves, I can understand why they would want to see legacy moves and exclusive moves remain in the game, because for all of their Dragonites that have Dragon Breath, Dragon Claw, or for all of their Gengars that have Shadow Claw, Shadow Ball, like, they want to keep the value of these Pokemon really high. Like, for example, I have two 100% Gengars with Shadow Claw and Shadow Ball, and they are probably my most coveted Pokemon among all of my collection. Of course, aside from my Raikou, which I managed to get on my wedding day, and it was a perfect IV. But that's a video for another day. But in any case, yeah, so I can understand why people really covet these exclusive moves and these legacy moves, and they don't want to see them removed from the game. I'm not actually calling for them to be removed. I'm just calling for them to be a lot more accessible to a lot of different players. Now, when PvP comes out, these Pokemon are going to have a huge advantage over Pokemon that don't have them. And I really think that's going to be detrimental for PvP, especially for players who are going to start playing Pokemon Go because of PvP. Because when PvP comes out, it's going to attract a whole different audience to the game. There's a lot of players who want to play Pokemon Go, who love the concept of Pokemon Go, but because there's nothing really competitive in Pokemon Go, aside from like local rankings and different things like that, which are not officially in the game, they are kind of adverse to playing and spending a lot of time in this game. So a lot of these players will be starting for the first time, and of course a lot of these players will not have access to a lot of legacy moves and exclusive moves because they were just not playing when these moves were around. So it really is unfortunate because I think a lot of players will be at a disadvantage when it comes to PvP just because they don't have access to a lot of exclusive moves. And I really think Niantic has to do something about this. Now, I think there's a lot of things Niantic could do to alleviate a lot of the frustrations that players have with exclusive moves, and honestly, I think it comes down to how they work the TM system. So I really don't see a problem with them adopting a TM system that's very similar to the Game Boy versions of Pokemon. Like, if they were to have TMs with specific moves and only certain Pokemon can use them, maybe you could have it as a super rare drop, or maybe you could have it as a PvP tournament reward or something like that. So that way people who have Tyrannitars but they weren't around for the community day, or maybe they were too busy for that community day, or maybe they just weren't playing during that community day, they have easy access to that move, and it still kind of retains a lot of the rarity behind that move. So this is just one solution that I thought of, but there's definitely others. Of course, trading is one thing that they could do, but you got to remember that these Pokemon are in limited supplies, so it doesn't mean everyone is going to have easy access to them. Now, kind of going along this point of discussion, so should exclusive moves and legacy moves be so easily accessible? Well, honestly, if it came down to just the collection aspect of it, I would honestly say no. Yeah, like these Pokemon, a lot of their value and worth does come down to these exclusive moves. Like I said, a Gengar with Shadow Claw and Shadow Ball is going to be a lot more rare than one with Hex and Shadow Ball, and especially one that's going to have Psychic. But honestly, because of the competitive edge that some of these exclusive moves bring to the table, I really think it's why it needs to be a little bit more accessible, because if we're talking about a solid PvP system that's going to flourish, it really needs to base itself on game balance. And for a lot of players to have a strong advantage in PvP, specifically because they have access to exclusive moves and legacy moves, whereas other players will not, I think that could be really huge for Pokemon Go in a very negative way, especially because PvP could be a crux of this game's success moving forward. I mean, yeah, it's been founding itself on shiny hunting and legendary raid bosses and different things like that, but a PvP mode could definitely cement this game for long-term success, and they really have to hit the ground running and make sure it's done completely right. And for them to do that, I really think they got to take steps to making sure the game is balanced. And yeah, unfortunately, with exclusive moves and legacy moves, these things will prevent PvP from getting balanced, and quite honestly, I think this has been a source of frustration for a lot of players for a lot of different reasons other than game balance, because I can't tell you how many players I know who do not have a Shadow Claw Shadow Ball Gengar. And of course, they were hoping that with this whole Gengar Day that they were announcing, they were more excited at the idea of them possibly bringing back Shadow Claw as opposed to getting a shiny. And I think this is a sentiment that you hear with a lot of different players. I think the whole thing with Mewtwo with Shadow Ball and how certain players were able to get that for a lot of their high IV Pokemon for a couple of minutes, whereas a bunch of other players who were not around when that announcement happened, and of course it wasn't official, it was a mistake, but for a lot of players who were not on the ball with that and they were not able to get Shadow Ball on their Mewtwo's, I think they are being put in a huge disadvantage compared to the players who just happen to be lucky. And I really think that's something that Niantic has to address. I think there's just not a whole lot of game balance in this game. I think that's been kind of like a given from the beginning, but to kind of give players an advantage competitively because they happen to be luckier than other players, I think this is not going to be a good thing for the game long term, because of course having a good balance of RNG and game balance I think is of course going to be really important for any game's success, because with RNG, with slot machine mechanics, like, you do have an element of excitement in the game, and I do not want to see that kind of leave. I think shinies definitely do a big thing for that, and definitely with IVs. But when it comes to exclusive moves, I really think this is where people should have a lot more control, because this is where the strategy of the game really comes in. So that's really what I have to say about it. I've not been happy with the idea of exclusive moves and legacy moves. Of course, you know, I really can't say much because I have a lot of these exclusive moves and legacy moves in my arsenal, but for a lot of players who do not have these moves and they are not able to find anyone who can trade those moves to them, I can understand their frustration, and I really want to speak out with them through this video. But yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. What you think about exclusive moves, what you think about legacy moves. Do they have a place in this game? Do you think it's not that big of a deal? I would really like to know what a lot of people are thinking. This is just my own opinions. I don't necessarily think this is how it should be. I mean, of course, a lot of people could argue and kind of change my opinion, so I want to see if anyone can, because I really don't think exclusive moves and legacy moves are good for the game and they're healthy for the game. But I may be completely wrong, and maybe someone has a reason for why they should be in the game aside from just the whole, you know, they're a collector's item aspect of it. But yeah, let's have a discussion below. And yeah, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button, make sure you subscribe if it's your first time here, and hit that little bell. And yeah, let's talk about it. I really want to know what people think about exclusive moves and legacy moves, because we don't really see a lot of YouTubers and we don't see a lot of people on social media really speaking out about it. So I want to know what people think about it. But yeah, that's going to be it for this video, folks. I really hope you enjoyed it. And again, if you did, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe button. I am Count Jinsula, and I'll catch you all later.